It's Wednesday night, and what have we just witnessed? I'm honestly not quite sure myself. Champions League round 16 wonder, and I use that word incredibly loosely. Victories over two legs in Madrid and Manchester, those two world footballing powerhouse cities that both begin with Ma. It is incredible to commune with you. I want to do so in the spirit of my friend John Green, who on his vlog today posted a really beautiful YouTube in which he said the following about his visit last weekend to watch his mighty Wimbledon down the MK Dons. I don't need you to love football. I only need you to love something that brings you together with others whose love is pointing in the same direction. For me, that's football. For you, it could be crochet or Jane Austen or distance running. But to be bound up with others, with friends and strangers alike, is the human condition. And to be in community is to be more fully alive. You know who makes me feel more fully alive? Oh, the gent who makes Wednesday the best day. Adore the way he thinks about the game we love. It is a joy to Champions League it up in the face with New York Times chief football correspondent. It's my mate. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
Evening. How you doing?
Oh, Roar, you are the best thing I have seen all night. Those games, we will talk about them. Champions League football is the best football. But, dear viewers, we'll also take your questions on anything. It can be tonight's slightly games. We can talk about the Premier League weekend hurtling towards Liverpool, Manchester City. Yes, Tottenham fans, we know about you and Aston Villa too, aka the final countdown. Let me remind you how. You can ask anything you want about football or life or poetry. Come up and be with us, GFOPs, right now. Ask us questions about it all. Here's how. Scan that QR code in the top left of your screen. It'll take you into a Zoom with our producer, Jake, who's like Tattoo on Fantasy Island. He's such a great host. He'll get you set up to ask you a question. Come and be with us. It's audio only, so you don't even have to put a shirt on. And if your question or comment can't wait, just bang it in the old comments. We'll read them out in the chat. Give us a like, that little thumbs up at the bottom of the screen. Come be with us in the spirit of John Green. But I do want to start with a very quick toast. I want to raise my third first Michelob Ultra of the day. Best Mickey since Arteta. Yes, to Arsenal Football Club, who on Monday night obliterated Sheffield United. Became the first English team in the top four tiers to win 3 away games. These are incredible numbers by 5 goals or more. I'm old enough to remember when Arsenal were, in the words of one philosopher king, Troy Deeney, lacking the cojones for cold nights like this up north, that they could be got at, smacked in the face, emasculated. But this team, they live to score from all points. 4 goals inside the first 25 minutes. First goal coming after a 29-pass sequence in which they just denied United so much of a touch of the ball for, I think, 2 minutes 40 or something like that. It was a night of ferocity, clinicality, joy. Got to say, Sheffield United, woeful. Reality captured by this @Rich Jolly tweet. So far in 24, Sheffield United have the 4th most goals at their home stadium, behind Brighton, Aston Villa and Arsenal. What a title race. What a time to be alive, Arsenal fans, especially to you, Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard, my mate, who had his second kid Monday night, Archie. May Archie get to experience sustained Arsenal joy in his lifetime. Rory, Willie, this child who was born Monday night, will he see Arsenal joy in his lifetime?
He'll see some Arsenal joy. I think it might not be this season, although it is looking increasingly like it will be. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about City in a little bit after they swept Copenhagen aside tonight. City, I think, remain favourites just because we know what they're capable of. We've seen what they do down the stretch before, several times before. But title races are about timing and momentum as well, and Arsenal are coming strong at exactly the right time. And look, Sheffield United are not much of a test. I think, and I say this with great affection for both clubs, Burnley and Sheffield United have let the North down this season. They really have. It's been a bit of a waste of everybody's time. And I feel for the fans because it can't be fun. But the goals that Arsenal are scoring, the sheer volume of them, the style of play, the fact that all their players are fit, it's a pretty good time for Arsenal to go on a bit of a charge and keep that pressure on City.
Welcome, baby Archie. You've come at a great time. Let's talk about Manchester City. Game at home tonight, 3-1 against Copenhagen. Honestly felt like job had been done before kickoff. City had won 3-1 back in the land of Viggo Mortensen. And Pep Guardiola really gave starts to all of his babies. And by all of his babies, I mean Norwegian natural Dane hater, 20-year-old Oscar Bob, Rico Lewis, Nunes, Guardiola also making the starting lineup. 7 changes from Sunday's golden stroll around Old Trafford against Manchester United. All the big guns watching on the bench. Copenhagen also bereft due to injury. They had 3 teenagers making their first ever starts in the Champions League. Callow youth. That strategy works so well, but only when Jurgen Klopp does it. Here turned a feisty Copenhagen team who have so many admirable qualities, if we're being honest, into, well, it looked like Sheffield United under Chris Wilder for the first half hour. Kept things tight for all of 5 minutes. They barely touched the ball before Alvarez arced a corner towards Akanji with pinpoint accuracy. And the Swiss just sublimely, ruthlessly, talent-kistly, if that's a word, volleyed the ball home first time. Haaland could never. And this, remember, was a defender pulling off a black belt finish. But this is Pep Guardiola football. I mean, Rory, every player can do everything. He once told me the perfect goal is when the ball starts with the goalkeeper and then every player touches it until it's tapped in at the other end. The whole of the opposing team has been defanged. But this, a defender scoring with the touch of a tender lover, must be a pretty close second Pep Guardiola goal. The amazing thing about City, you told me this, is how outstanding so many, emphasis on so many, of their players are, but how utterly replaceable they all seem.
Yeah, I did the radio with Micah Richards in Britain on Monday night, as I do whenever Micah can be bothered to turn up. And we were talking about Phil Foden, who Guardiola at the weekend had said had been the best player in the Premier League this season. More to come on that thorny debate in the New York Times at some point in the next couple of days when I've got round to writing it. But Micah kind of said, Foden's been the main man for City this season. Obviously, the main man is De Bruyne. And obviously, there's Rodri as well. He's kind of the main man as well, and Haaland's the main man. But along with those, Foden's definitely the main man. And we don't get to the stage where they had between 11 and 13 main men. And the thing with City is Foden. That's probably right. Foden probably has been one of the best players in the Premier League this season, depending on how you define best. But I think, and I don't mean this as a slight on Phil Foden at all, if Guardiola decided not to play him even in a relatively big game, I don't think they'd miss him. And that's not just he's not that good. It's because whoever replaces him is one of the best players in the league as well. There's a bit of a myth with City in terms of the size of their squad. They don't have a massive squad, Man City. But I don't think anybody else, not Liverpool, not Arsenal, certainly no one else in Europe, has got like a 15 as strong as them, a 15 or 16 maybe, where they have a first 11, 5 substitutes, and they are all just as good as each other, basically. That's what gives them that depth. It's what makes them so imposing. It's what allows them to go on those big tears at the end of the season. The one kind of, what's the word? Like side effect, I guess, could be that maybe it means some of the players, Haaland apart, don't quite get the individual recognition they need, because something at the back of your brain is saying they'd be okay without Bernardo Silva. They're okay without Kevin De Bruyne, and that's Kevin De Bruyne, and they were fine.
He was the one that came to mind. Bernardo Silva on a very, very, very good team, not named Manchester City, would be one of the stars in the league. In Manchester City, he's just like a piece of a team, and really, you cannot be the star of a Manchester City team. Pep Guardiola sucks up so much of the oxygen, is just such the face of that team. Even KDB, we're all trying to work out why has he gone so late in his career for his first ever singular haircut. It's almost like, look at me. But we don't look at any of them individually. It's like Pep, his huge face is hovering over the identity of the whole outfit.
Every so often, City will get upset at kind of an institutional level. The fans obviously will pick up the cudgels on various issues, as all fans of all clubs do. But the club itself will kind of get annoyed if it feels that one of its players hasn't won an individual award, one of the Footballer of the Year awards, particularly if a Liverpool player has won it instead. And it happened when Van Dijk won them, and it happened when Salah won them. I can't remember who the candidates were from City, but City felt very strongly internally that they'd won the title and they'd won the FA Cup or whatever, and they deserved to have the clean sweep of all the individual awards. And my arguments to that were twofold. One was the snarky one, which is that the team that wins the title, the prize for that is the title. That's what you get for being it's not an argument to win an individual award that you're the best team in the country. Just the award for being the best team in the country is a big Premier League trophy. And the other is that I think that there is a bit of a flip side to having a coach like Guardiola, because certainly in the media, and I think fans in general as well, we kind of attribute all the success to Guardiola. Everything is seen through the prism of, well, Guardiola's done this. So you look at the amazing individual performances that you have, there's always the credit for it is always traced back to Guardiola. And the one exception to that, I think, is Haaland. Because what Haaland does, A, doesn't necessarily fit in like the Pep image of a team, and B, the numbers are just so insane that it's hard to say, well, this is Pep Guardiola doing this. Just there's something kind of elemental about Erling Haaland. But generally, if you see City, you are thinking at all times, isn't Pep a genius? You're not necessarily thinking, do you know what? Rodri really dominates a midfield.
It's just like, was the movie called The Manhattan Project or was it called Oppenheimer? And I do believe, give it about 60 years and we'll all be going to watch Guardiola when Barbie 2 comes out, and it's going to be utterly magnificent. It would soon be 2 goals. Oh, another corner, another goal. Who do they think they are? Arsenal. Alvarez lashing a shot with power, and frankly, chutzpah from an acute angle, embarrassing former Liverpool goalkeeper Grabara. Copenhagen got a consolation goal. Fine finish, actually, from Elyounoussi. Yes, former Southampton player now in the Champions League big time. Leading to Copenhagen fans in attendance. Really lovely moment, bouncing around, making all the noise in the Etihad. But it would prove to be just a sweet, delicious, yet irrelevant, fleeting moment of memory making. Because on the stroke of half-time, Rodri ball direct over the top. Haaland brought it down. Soft hands for a big man. Danced through 3 defenders before lashing home. A Gulliver amongst Champions League minnows. Cue slightly weird kung fu spin kick Selly. The numbers are insane. Haaland has scored 81 goals in 85 City appearances, 29 this season. It's like watching Shaquille O'Neal break backboards at LSU. That dominant. 6 in the Champions League this season, co-leading 41 Champions League goals in just 37. Let me read that one again. 41 Champions League goals in 37 Champions League games. Rory, dude is making every league seem like a farmers league.
Yeah, he really is. I don't think anyone's sort of hit the Premier League running as Haaland has done, and that's testament not only to how good he is, but to the team he's in as well. Like there was always that sense that if you took a team that created as many chances as Man City and put Haaland in it, then this is what would happen. That it was an equation effectively. And I suppose the only doubt with that is that sometimes you do have to adjust how you set up to include a player like Haaland, because he doesn't do a lot of the defensive work that kind of Gabriel Jesus was doing in that role. But it turns out that when you score an endless amount of goals, doesn't really matter. Ultimately, football is about putting the ball in the goal, and Erling Haaland is the best at that. So it's worth having him in the team.
God, Liverpool fans watching would pray that the Danes gave City a runaround. Oh, they didn't. Liverpool's Sunday opponents in a game now loom large. A game, I don't like to be hyperbolic, but it will determine the future of civilization. City are now on their big march. They have not lost in a quarter of a year. Let me ask you this, and I'm saying it not to curse it, but But first, Liverpool title winning season. I was at this game at Anfield, in which these two teams collided. November 2019, Fabinho's 6-minute thunder was the catalyst. I think it was Salah added the second with his. He had a lot more hair then. Mane made it 3. But God, that Liverpool team was an elite organisation. It was a system. It was a cohesive idea with a sharpened blade. This squad, to me, seems more like a hero's march, like a weekly wonder, but more a living miracle. This City They're a gruesome machine. Rory, we've got to say this just to the public so they know your POV. Liverpool sympathies, let's put it that way. Do you have any confidence in Liverpool going into this one?
Roger, Liverpool to be playing Bradford under 11s and I wouldn't have complete confidence. Like, I'm not. There's two types of fans. There's the type of fan that is...
Your players would still be 4 or 5 years younger than them.
There's the type of fan that kind of is outraged when their team loses, and there's the type of fan that fully expects the worst thing to happen at all times. And I'm very much the second one, and I'm trying to teach my son, who's 6, and has the natural joy of a 6-year-old, that you have to be depressed about football in anticipation. Now, I think it's a slightly funny situation because it is the game that will determine the end of, the course of civilization. But then there's another one on March the 31st when City play Arsenal. So to be probably more honest than I should be, my general view about that 99th minute winner against Forest last week was that it means that even if Liverpool lose, and I don't think Liverpool will win at the weekend, if it's a draw, it's fine for Liverpool. They stay ahead of City. You'd have absolutely taken that at the start of the season. If Liverpool lose, they're still only 2 points back. They're within, a single game turnaround. They've got a slightly better goal difference. It's a single game turnaround. It means City still have to be perfect. They can keep them honest. As I say, I think City will win the league. Arsenal seem to have the momentum. Liverpool, to me, have always been a work in progress this season. And that hasn't changed despite the results. I'm not sure, particularly with the injuries, and especially as they're playing Thursday night, I'm not sure that this is the ideal time for Liverpool to, give the best account of themselves against City. But a draw, I think, is a perfectly acceptable result from a Liverpool point of view.
This City, they are inevitable. The football, for being honest, in this run has not always been the kind of profound, football on skates magic that we are accustomed to. But the results have been, inarguably borderline perfect. What would it mean if they repeated the treble? Would it be a symbol of majestic potence, or would it be broken football?
In the City-produced and directed documentary that would later be sold to Netflix about it, it would very much be the former. Not quite sure where the line between documentary and advert begins and ends. I think you can admire.
If you're American, you have no problems with the notion of infomercials. I just say, as someone that just like when I moved here was just blown away by the notion of the ShamWow commercial, which I'd actually actively seek out. I have no problems with infomercials, but carry on.
You're in it for the infomercials. No, I think it's not actually that hard to separate the kind of majesty of the way City play, the fact that this is the ultimate vision of Guardiola football, probably even beyond his great Barcelona team, which was much more captivating. Don't get me wrong. There was much more romance. There was much more thrill to that Barcelona team. This City team are too inevitable to be thrilling, to be perfectly honest, to a neutral. This is his great masterpiece. This is everything he could ever have wanted in a football club, in a team, in a setting, and he's allowed his vision to come to fruition. It occasionally seems like Guardiola's doing things just to challenge himself. He's going to try and win the title with a team full of left backs. He's going to play Erling Haaland in goal and see what happens. He will only sign Argentinian players for a year just to see if he can. But I think at the same time, the fact that they are within reach of repeating the treble is troubling. It's something that football generally should be looking at, thinking this isn't ideal. And to be honest, even tonight, because I think you've been a bit harsh on the Real Madrid game. The Real Madrid game I thought was quite good, but this Champions League, we talked about this last week, or on European nights, this Champions League is not as thrilling as it should be. It's not the appointment viewing that the Champions League knockouts were even 3 or 4 years ago, and certainly 10, 15 years ago. And that is a problem for everybody. And it's related to the fact that, like City, there are several teams who are too big to fail. You kind of know who's going through. There's not really that much shock about it. There's not that much jeopardy or drama or tension. People don't tune in for that.
Yeah, and by the way, I think football will fix itself just by giving Everton another points deduction. Let's talk about that other game tonight. Real Madrid welcomed RB Leipzig to the Bernabeu and ended up holding on. Just a 1-1 draw on the night that came alive in the second half, like Peter Frampton. 2-1 win on aggregate. 14-time champions. Madrid, just escaped 14 power drinks. Leipzig with a 1-0 win in the opening leg. Jude Bellingham had missed that game, was back here. And the match opened with both teams set to probe. Real Madrid burrowing away to Vinicius at one end, young Belgian Luis Openda opening up his body but getting it all wrong with a goal at his mercy at the other. Indeed, Real Madrid's back four was oddly, in the opening exchanges, inert, vulnerable to Leipzig's speed, and Leipzig's woeful finishing. Their strikers just seem not to believe, with Madrid's goal gaping. We've talked about this on European Nights, Rory. There is something about Real Madrid in European competition, their very reputation, a reputation earned in large part by hundreds of players no longer at the club, managers nothing to do with the team. That reputation almost wins them the game without a ball being kicked. Is it possible that the idea of Real Madrid itself can win games?
Yeah, 100%. I think people at the Bernabeu do not quite freeze, but I think that players are somehow just occasionally inhibited. That they feel the pressure of the occasion, they feel the steepness of the stands, they feel how that is the ultimate stage to a lot of players. You know, obviously in the English speaking world, the Premier League is kind of where it's at, and Old Trafford and Anfield and the Emirates have this special status. But in a lot of parts of the world, the Bernabeu and Camp Nou are the two great temples of the game. And I think players do what's the word, like shrink a little bit in the Bernabeu. And the opposite effect applies to Real Madrid, that they become an inch taller, an inch wider, half a mile per second quicker or something. I don't know the exact metric, but like they are clearly inspired by this stage that is theirs, that is behind them. They feel that weight of history. I think like the data part of my brain, the part that believes in science and rationality and a round world, thinks that's nonsense. But football is defined by intangibles to some extent, and the Bernabeu is one of those great intangibles.
God, football is perpetually flat earth. Honestly, Copenhagen refuse to know their history, up their intensity, move almost without caution. Chances made, chances blown. Real Madrid set to snooze. Half-time 0-0. Bernabeu very, very quiet. Second half, game became spikier. Vinicius got a yellow card for one of those only in football two-handed pushes to the throat of an opponent, which just like levels them as if they've been hit with a poleaxe. But when it looked just like the man had lost his focus, 65th minute, Real Madrid on a counter, Bellingham the damn buster, feeding a brilliant run from Vinny, quite magnificently. He lashed the ball past an exposed Galassis, despairing dive there. Vinny, Rory, some week for that man. My God, the image of him from the weekend with his fist raised in the face of the fans that had, racistly abused him. He is a remarkable footballer. Mentally, it's almost like he's never more lethal than when provoked.
Yeah, well, just to start, it's Red Eye in the chat has asked whether Madrid got robbed against Valencia. No, I'll stand on this hill and die on it. The whistle started as the corner was going in. That wasn't a controversial one. You can make an argument that referees probably shouldn't award corners and then think, do you know what? Nothing's happening from this. Don't let them take it. But it wasn't the 1974 World Cup, which is a really niche reference that some people might get, but a lot of people won't.
1978.
Was that Clive Thomas, 78?
Yeah.
I take it back, 1978. When Clive, the referee, blew the whistle as the ball was crossing the line. It wasn't quite that. They weren't robbed. Unfortunate, not a conspiracy.
Sweden, Brazil.
That's right. Are you sure it was 78? I'm not sure, Roger. I'm going to dispute this.
I am 100% sure that it was 1978, because I actually watched that.
You are a wiser man than me.
If I'm wrong, which I'd love to be, because I like to think of you as perfect, you know what? Let's look that one up while you're speaking. Keep going.
But Vinicius is obviously he's a wonderful player, one of the best in the world. His kind of ability to get the ball as he's kind of almost going into a kneel and then let it slip through his legs and then spin around, spring back up and beat and run past the defender. I've never seen anybody else do. It's an amazing move. But he has had to deal with a lot more than any player, but particularly a player who is one of the biggest stars in the league, should have to deal with. He has been consistently, and to be honest, in a kind of quite organised way, targeted by fans with racist abuse. That the argument in Spain, in surprising quantities, has been that it's not racist. They're just trying to put him off in a racist way, which is a laughable and, to be honest, really embarrassing defence that not just the people caught doing it are saying this, as a way of justifying their ugly and unforgivable actions. But you get institutions saying this, that it's kind of part of the game. It's an attempt. It's no different from booing, or whistling or jeering or whatever. There is an inability within Spain to understand what people are putting Vinicius through. His riposte to that has been to make sure that they know they are not going to win. And I think it's really hard not to admire Vinicius, not just for his talent, but also for his courage and his conviction and his kind of refusal to be cowed in the face of all the stuff that he's been put through, with the complete lack of institutional support apart from at Real Madrid.
By the way, that is so beautifully said. I mean, not just one incident, but sustained incidents. His continued tenacity and his continued ability to deliver in the face of it is humanly magnificent. We've also got to credit Leipzig. They didn't will. Olmo cracked one towards the corner of the goal. Love this moment. Rudiger extending one of his feet to swipe away and then celebrated his goal-saving poke as if he just scored himself. It's one of my favourite things. Defenders celebrating a saving moment as if he himself had scored, or as if he himself was Jordan Pickford celebrating an average save. But it was just a temporary reprieve off a cross. Oh, Captain Orban used his meaty Hungarian forehead to slightly shoulder the football home Beto style. But this game was so open. Leipzig had no hope but to press forward. Madrid, tellingly, couldn't control the midfield at all. Indeed, every set piece, every corner made Real Madrid creak and quake, but they ultimately held firm. And I don't know how you say survive and advance in Espanol. But that is the way of the warrior. Rory, on one hand, Madrid have lost just twice this season, I think to Atletico both times. On the other, this was a deeply vulnerable performance in the same way as Bayern's win, which we'll talk about in a moment, was a win despite vulnerabilities. Does it feel like in terms of the teams left in this tournament, you've got kind of like Manchester City, Arsenal, maybe Inter in that kind of ether, and then everyone else?
It does in a logical sense, but then it's Real Madrid in the Champions League, so you can never apply too much logic to it. I saw Ryan O'Hanlon from ESPN tweet that Real Madrid look terrible. I'm putting them to the top of my power ranking, which I think sums it up. But then, to be fair, the same thing happened last season to an extent. Madrid looked really unconvincing, and we kind of assumed, look, it's Real. They've got this aura in the Champions League. They will get there by hook or by crook. And then they ran into Man City in the semi-finals. In the Bernabeu, they allowed City to have the ball, but they basically matched them. And you thought, okay, yeah, this is Real Madrid in the Champions League. You can never, ever count them out. They went to the Etihad and got taken apart, completely taken apart.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think City are, by some distance, the best team in the competition. I actually think the only team that can put them out over two legs is Arsenal. I don't think anybody else is capable of it. Inter, I agree. I thought were brilliant against Atletico last week. Real are better than last year, but what we saw tonight doesn't make me think they can beat either of the English teams over two legs. I think in a final, Real Madrid are I know this from bitter experience. I've seen better teams than this Arsenal lose Champions League finals to Real Madrid quite recently. So I think in a final, Real are really unpredictable. They have the talent. They've got Vinicius, they've got Bellingham, they've got the experience of Kroos and Modric. They're missing David Alaba, Eder Militao from defence. In particular, they're really big blows not to have them. Thibaut Courtois, I think, won't be fit certainly until the very latter stages of the tournament, if at all. I think in a final, they'd be a threat to pretty much anybody. I think over two legs, both Arsenal and Man City would beat them.
Oh, Christina Stotts, hello you. We're going to have a rematch of Manchester City against Real Madrid. But she would love to see PSV. We'd all love to see PSV. Let us dream. Talking about dreams, Bayern 3, Lazio 0. After early nervous moments, the Germans rediscovered their swagger. Tuesday night, die Arroganz, as I believe they say in German, to rekindle recent memories of when Bayern Munich used to feel inevitable. They are not. They're really deeply vulnerable. Lazio kind of wilted here, but it was wonderful to see. Harry Kane, remember him? God bless him in his sketches, scoring big goals on big European nights in the Champions League. Honestly, he deserves that. There's no joke coming. He deserves that and more. Raw, just play make-believe with us here. Tuchel, who actually last night broke a toe after apparently, I don't believe this for a second, incorporating a slightly weird kicking the floor of the dressing room in the name of pre-game motivational speeches. I would just love to see that. I would love to see the team's reaction. I would love to see whether he just like laughed it off, whether he sucked in the pain, I genuinely would love to get the footage of this toe breaking. But what happens if a miracle happens? Eric Dyer's finely tuned leadership inspires Bayern Munich to win the Champions League. Do they still fire Thomas Tuchel, or does he just keep turning up to his desk at work and pretend everything's normal?
Do you know, of all the scenarios that I thought about, the one in which Eric Dyer rises majestically to head home a 92nd minute winner against Manchester City in the Champions League final, or even better, Arsenal in the Champions League final, had not occurred to me, but it would be hilarious. So I'm now all in for that.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
Not Kane.
Eric Dyer
not
just
Kane.
running with his freshly inked him tattoo on his hand, putting it into the camera. Spelled wrong.
Eric Dyer scoring the winner in a Champions League final, I think, would be the perfect conclusion to this season.
What happened? Are they still like, Tommy, thank you.
No,
see yourself out.
I think that's done. I think as you've seen, it's really interesting actually seeing that, we talked a lot about kind of the change in power dynamics of European football and the kind of apparently inevitable, incessant drift towards the Premier League. But it's really nice seeing what happens when a big European club does a full court press on the media. I think it's really interesting to watch the briefings coming out of Munich. Yes, we're very confident of getting Xabi Alonso. All these German sort of Munich-based reporters saying Bayern are leading the race for Xabi Alonso. And I think, that's what Bayern are telling you. I'm pretty sure might be a reason for that. I think there's wheels in motion. It's not really worked with Tuchel. The Bayern needs a manager that can go for a pint of sausage with Uli Hoeneß, and that's not Thomas Tuchel. So he's going to have.
Who likes beer and sausage and speaks German? By the way, I want to talk about Xabi Alonso in a minute, but how you act in the wake of a stubbed toe, I've always believed this is one of the only life truths, says a lot about you. In that moment, do you swear? Do you laugh it off? Do you just cry? Do you blame Eric Dyer? It really is the ultimate study in humanity, right?
It's the same as when you trip over a step, isn't it? Or when you kind of miss your step when you're walking. Like, what if you try and style it out as though you didn't do it? That is a sign of a weak personality. You have to kind of accept the cruelty of fate and move on. Smile, laugh, maybe acknowledge a passerby. Sort of make it clear that you think it was funny too. That's the only way of diffusing it. I imagine Thomas Tuchel had to pretend he was doing it on purpose.
I don't think he's a big laugh it off kind of guy.
I think he is. I think Thomas Tuchel is genuinely quite funny. Yeah,
he genuinely, because the only times I spent with Thomas Tuchel, he was genuinely one of the most terrifying. I've only spent time with him in the Dortmund days. That Thomas Tuchel, that kind of aspirational on the way up guy. There wasn't a lot of yucks.
Is interesting. I think he's very dry. And slightly, maybe slightly cautious, maybe in that sort of formal setting, thinking he was, he had to be on his best behaviour. Maybe that made him slightly. Maybe you're a charismatic presence, Rod. You might just have intimidated him.
The way you make it sound is that this dude, in your mind, this dude stubbed his toe and then just ripped far in front of
what's really occurring to me is that you went and interviewed Thomas Tuchel, and it sounds like he didn't like you.
You're on to me. By the way, Thomas Tuchel back to Chelsea. That's what happens if he wins the Champions League for sure. But you did mention reports out of Germany, and we need to say these are reports out of Germany, which makes it sound like Lord Ha is giving these reports, but it's not that. This is legit German sports journalists. Bayern Munich, quote, open talks with Xabi Alonso as the Bayern Leverkusen coach is targeted to be the next man, despite being linked with a move to Liverpool. Lots of mumbles about him, quote, not wanting to be the man to follow the Klopp. I mean, you've given us a sense of this. What is your latest gut thinking on the Xabi stakes?
I think actually, so what's happened is that Bayern are doing what Bayern always do, what Real Madrid always do, what Barcelona always do. They have realised the man they want. It's obvious that both Bayern and Liverpool want Xabi Alonso. He has that choice to make. And Bayern, I think, sense, because Liverpool moved first, because Klopp obviously announced he was leaving in January, because Liverpool are a much more stable environment, they're kind of in a process of finding a new coach. Bayern, I think, realise that they are having to make up ground, think on the fly, which is completely fair enough. And part of all those big clubs, Arsenal, in these situations is a kind of media campaign to I suppose like Gwyneth Paltrow would probably call it manifesting. That's what Bayern are doing. They are manifesting Xabi Alonso.
I bet they love Gwyneth Paltrow and but I love Goop.
Actually, no, Thomas Tuchel is definitely a man who's bought a jade egg. That's not true.
By the way, it probably is true.
They're trying to manifest in. I don't think they've opened talks.
Yeah,
and they certainly haven't opened talks with Leverkusen. Liverpool, by all accounts, have spoken to Alonso's agent, and that interest has then been passed on to Leverkusen, which I guess is the proper way of doing it. Obviously, there's lots of stuff behind the scenes. Bayern will have reached out to Xabi Alonso in some way to say, "Look, is this something we should pursue or not?" I'm guessing he said, "Yeah, it's something I'd consider." So there's no point kind of saying no to it at this stage. Same with Liverpool, I think. But the one thing where I think Bayern are taking a risk, they are in the same league as Leverkusen. They're quite distant in second, 10 points back now. I think for it to look to Leverkusen like Alonso was actively considering joining Bayern for next season now would be a really poor look for Xabi Alonso. So the high-profile nature, all the briefing, the fact that there's so much noise, and much of it seems to be coming from Bayern, I think probably doesn't help their case, to be honest. Alonso will be conscious of how it looks if it seems to Leverkusen fans as though he's negotiating with a theoretical title rival.
It's fair. Goop's tagline, also Tuchel's, nourish the inner aspect. Oh, ich liebe Gwyneth. One quick note on Lazio fans, the Rome club, with the fascist tendencies, they never miss an opportunity to just Lazio it up. Really remarkable yesterday, watching over 100 Lazio fans use the trip to Munich to go to the Hofbrauhaus brewery and casually deliver fascist chants lauding Adolf Hitler. The Hofbrauhaus is obviously the venue where Hitler founded the National Socialist German Workers' Party in 1920. I think you'll probably find slightly less Gwyneth Paltrow Goop fans congregating there, but that's why we follow football. For things like that. Ultimately, football is just a mirror of the society and the politics and the culture that surrounds it. That was really quite horrific sight. But also yesterday, PSG swatted aside an admirable model club in many ways, but out of their depth in the Champions League round of 16, Real Sociedad, who were slower, outgunned, outmatched, self-professedly. And after all the talk of Luis Enrique that PSG must prepare for life post Mbappe, this was the Kylian show with the French wonder smacking one shot so bloody hard. It unhinged the net. Rory Smith, lots of talk about tweaking the rules of football. Tell me this, should Mbappe goals with Ray Hudson commentating count double? Yes,
100%, without question. I actually think PSG and Bayern are kind of similar. The fact they both went through on the same night maybe is why that forced analogy came into my mind. On the surface, I stand by what we said before. City are way better than everybody else. Arsenal are second. Then you've got maybe Inter and Real Madrid just behind them. But PSG and Bayern, if they get decent draws in the quarterfinals, then suddenly they're in the semis. And they do have quite a lot of individual talent. They've got quite a lot of certainly Bayern, a lot of experience within the squad. PSG have a lot of experience of losing in the Champions League. There's maybe the Mbappe situation might have created a bit of an identity at PSG, a bit of a kind of common cause. So I don't know whether we maybe shouldn't sleep on them entirely, as unlikely as it seems. I mean, there's a decent chance that PSG get Man City, lose 7-2 on aggregate, and that's that in the quarterfinals. But they probably have to be taken seriously just because of the players they have.
I still think Liverpool are somehow going to win the Champions League. It's that kind of a season for Jurgen Klopp. Lastly, before we take your questions and come on up to be with producer Jake, just want to say I can't wait for the US women to take the field tonight in Gold Cup play. Semi-finals against dread rivals Canada, the last CONCACAF team to deliver United States defeat on home soil. That was back in 2000, of course, before last Monday's shot loss to Mexico. The United States has the historic advantage in the head-to-head record, but Canada just knocked us out of the semi-final in the last Olympics, so the pain is real. The stakes are high. I do believe the United States women can very much still win this entire tournament. But the vulnerability is so extremely visible as we're almost living through this purgatory of waiting for Emma Hayes to arrive. Roll on tonight. Godspeed to our women, because the Olympics is so very close. We can almost taste it. That competition is going to be intense and unforgiving. This squad need momentum, confidence, a renewed sense of self. By the way, some big news for TWG, the women's game, and everything we hope to bring you from women's football is coming out on Friday. We have some very, very large news for the growth of that side of our network. I'm so bloody blown away by everything Sam Lewis is building. But to your questions, quick reminder of how this works. Here on YouTube Live, you just got to scan that QR code in the top left of your screen or click the pinned comment in the chat. It'll take you into a Zoom with our producer Jake, who can tell you everything you need to know, and he's gorgeous. Do not worry, you won't appear on screen. And for those of you who don't want to ask a question, smash the like button. But let us start without further ado. Oh, come on up, Mr. Daniel T. Tell us where you are and what's your question. Okay, we are going to move on to the mighty Saba Raheel. Saba, come on up. Tell us where you are and what's your question.
So my question is that why do you think Real Madrid is not that good?
Oh, Saba, that is a great question. I'm just projecting that you're a hardcore Atleti fan. Tell us where you are, Saba. Where are you in America?
I am in California, America, and I lived in England for about 2 years until I moved here. And I wasn't actually talking about Atletico Madrid. I was talking about Real Madrid. And why do you think they're worse than Manchester City? Because I think I think Real Madrid will win the Champions League this season with Bellingham and Vinny Jr.
Saba, I think one day we're all going to be working for you. You are a great broadcasting future in the making. I love your question. I'm going to let Rory ask it, but I do want you to stay on because I want to hear about where you were in England. I want to hear about what team you support in one moment. But Rory, can you answer the man's question?
Yeah, it's a good question. And when you list the players at Real Madrid, it's very easy to see why Saba thinks that they can win the Champions League. And it's not ridiculous. Like I say, it is Real Madrid. It is the Champions League. They have been here before. And like worse Real Madrid teams than this one have probably won the Champions League. I think the reason that I would make City favourites is that they are just such a smoothly oiled machine. You never see City have spells where they look really flustered. They never tend to come under too much pressure. They never seem to be out of control, whereas Real Madrid, by design to an extent, allow their opponents to have a little bit of control. And most of the time, like Saba says, because of Bellingham, because of Vinny, because of Rodrigo, all those players, they have the individual talent to kind of absorb the pressure, to deal with the problems and go and win. Head-to-head against City, I think City are just too slick. But, you know, it's Real Madrid, it's the Champions League. I'm just going to keep repeating it's Real Madrid and it's the Champions League. That feels like it's my hedge. I can hedge my bets by saying that.
Oh, Saba, where were you in England?
Manchester.
Oh, so who is your team, Saba? Tell us, reveal to the world.
It was at first Manchester United, but seeing what's going on with them right now, I'm not sure now.
Yeah, good decision.
Saba,
it's the right way to be.
Welcome to Everton Football Club, Saba. We got plenty of room for you on the Sean Dyche train.
Can I just say straight up, no, thank you.
Saba, you are a wise man. Pick your team carefully. Actually, let it choose you. Come be with us anytime. It is a joy to be with you, Saba Raheel. Next up, it's the mighty. Is it Daniel T? Technical problems, yes. Are they overcome? We'll give it one more shot. Daniel, not to sound like we're at a seance, but are you there? Oh, Danny T, this is a darkness. Your cell phone is the Everton of cell phones. Come be with us next week, you beauty. Jack Temple, you're next. Come on up, baby. Tell us where you are and what's your question.
Hey, Raj. Hey, Rory. This is Jack from San Diego, and I appreciate you guys talking about the Champions League, but I want to talk about the real matches of the day. Of course, the CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup.
Woot, woot.
I have the great pleasure of taking my two young sons and my wife to both matches tonight. Really pumped about it. I wanted to get your take on who's advancing to the final, and I also want to hear from Rory, where should I eat in my own hometown? Thanks a lot.
They said, where are you from, Jack?
San Diego.
Oh my lord, Rory, have you ever actually been to San Diego?
No,
baby?
I can't give any advice on San Diego whatsoever. I've never been to San Diego. I've heard it's lovely, but I've never been.
Jack Temple, I once had a beautiful dinner there as the sun was setting over a cliff where everyone congregated to surf, and then they came in to watch sails just bask in the waning sunlight. I do not remember where I was. I ate an incredible piece of tuna, and then I met the seals and felt guilty that I was eating something that may have swam past them because they were so sweet and cute once upon a time. Where would I have been?
You probably were in La Jolla, looking over La Jolla Cove, I would guess. I'm not sure about which restaurant, though.
Oh my God, it made me love America.
Jack, to be fair, I've never been to San Diego, but I'm assuming there's more than one restaurant that serves tuna. So, Rog would have been like pushing it a bit to get like which precise restaurant.
There's not that many that serve tuna there that would let the likes of me in.
That's true.
Without a shirt and without shoes. And they were just very, very welcoming. It was bits out, tuna in. It was quite magnificent. But Jack Temple, you're asking about tonight. You're going with your family. You are clearly a long-time US fan. I mean, you are the kind of human being that would give their baby a truly in-game so that they could just savor every second with you. By the way, that person at the last game was a true American hero, and I do want to speak to them and ask them about their child-rearing techniques. I think they're all that's good about this nation. But how are you honestly feeling? There's the support we have in our hearts. There's the support we have in our heads. And this team is kind of in the same purgatory as our men was after the 2018 disaster, where we didn't have a coach and then we had to wait for an extended time and have the program almost live on in purgatory. The nice news is we know someone great is coming on the women's side. Emma Hayes is coming possibly as early as June. But how do you feel in the head as you're going to this game? Would you not support football like that, Jack Temple?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of the head and a bit of the heart, obviously. It's been an up and down last, year or so. But I feel like looking at the way they played against Colombia, I feel like we're peaking at the right time. I feel like we have enough senior leadership and enough kind of lessons learned from the World Cup that I really have a good feeling about tonight. I think we're going to do it.
Godspeed. I tell you, I mean, it is fascinating. I'm glad you've hit that point because it's one that Sam Lewis hits a lot in our post-game analysis about that need. You know, we as fans in these fractious times, we so often want that next big thing, the saviour, to come in and save us. I've got to say, watching Jayden Shaw, such a phenomenal football player, so intelligent, a movement, awareness of space. Is phenomenal. We don't want Jayden Shaw anymore. We want Jayden Shaw's children. We want younger, the next saviour to come in. And I think it's that combination, the experience at the back. I mean, funny enough, Naomi Girma almost passes as experience now, and you know her well from San Diego. What a footballer, what a rock of the future. But it was also Tina Davidson in the last game playing such intelligent football at the back. Behind her, Alyssa Nair, I mean, written out in the moment of victory because we just want glory and we needed to savour the goals and that thrill again. But without Alyssa Nair, those two key saves against Colombia in that first 30 minutes, it could have been a very different night. I would go savour everything, give all your children multiple beverages, especially if they're in a baby Bjorn, and just make great memories. I do believe there is a remarkable group of individuals in that squad. What we really need is like a cohesive, deeply intelligent, tactical game plan that can bring the best out of them. It was amazing to watch them press again, very aggressively, very intelligently, very cohesively. All I'll say is Emma Hayes, Jack Temple cannot come quickly enough. Enjoy San Diego. I cannot wait to get out there this season and hopefully watch your wave. Godspeed. Two more quick ones. Josh Youngerman. Oh, God bless. One of my favourite of the Youngerman clan. Come back up. Tell us where you are and what's your question.
Oh, I appreciate that, Raj. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm waiting in a rainstorm so I can talk with you all tonight.
That's very romantic. Oh, mate, we
Yes,
are here. We are here for you. Let
you had me at
Rory
hello.
Smith. Yes, indeed. I love you. Let's exchange rom-com platitudes and let Rory Smith be your philosophical umbrella. Tell us what your question is, Joshua.
Okay. So last time I called in this buoyant and optimistic as an Arsenal supporter, things went, let's say, tits up. If I'm going to use my correct British parlance, I lived in England for 3 years, so I can say this. But I'm looking at this goal difference right now in the Premier League. I'm curious what you and Rory think. At one point, does the goal difference start to be insurmountable for Man City in Liverpool? Because I'm looking at the rate or the frequency that both these teams, Man City in particular, tend to like give goals away. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to make up. Well, I think it's 10 with over Man City right now. But I think at one point do we start looking at goal difference as the advantage that Arsenal have in terms of, in this title race, because I don't see them giving up too many more goals. Arsenal.
What a beautiful question. When does it become like an extra point road? Currently, Arsenal goal difference plus 45, Manchester City's plus 35, Liverpool's 39. I mean, how do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and it's likely to get a bit better this weekend as well, because obviously Liverpool and City play each other, and although one team might well win, I think it's unlikely that either team will win by more than, say, 3 goals. And Arsenal playing Brentford, who are in free fall, and could easily, the way they're playing, get another 4, 5, 6. So it might well be that by the end of the weekend they've got like a 10 advantage on Liverpool and a 12, 14 on City. It's only relevant sometimes, goal difference. That's the thing. I had this argument with them not to name drop abysmally with someone that no one listening to this will have heard of, but with Chris Sutton the other day. That
your dad,
my angry dad, Chris Sutton. He's only 9 years older than me. It's upsetting. Goal difference often isn't that important because obviously you need the points to be the same for it to be a factor. But I do think psychologically it's quite significant with Arsenal because they are, points-wise at the moment, third of 3. But it does mean that as soon as anybody else slips up, not only do they overtake them on points or draw level with them on points, but they are automatically ahead. Arsenal could well finish this weekend top again, and that's a position they probably won't. In fact, they certainly won't, as no one's playing until the end of March, and they won't abandon for several weeks. That's important. So I do think the fact that they're scoring a lot of goals is significant, and I completely agree that City, as imperious as they look, as unbeaten as they are for since the turn of the year, they are giving up a lot of chances. I saw them against Luton in the FA Cup, and obviously the eye was drawn to an extent by Erling Haaland scoring 5 goals. But Luton scored twice and could have had 4 or 5, to be perfectly honest, with slightly better finish and slightly better decision making. Similar against Manchester United, who, to be honest, are about as good as Luton. United had plenty of chances. They had plenty of opportunities to get in behind City. They don't look quite as defensively secure as they did last season, a couple of seasons ago. Their goal difference will not. I think Arsenal will end the season with the best goal difference at the current rate of progress. And that is an advantage because it is really tight.
Champions of goal difference, you'll never sing that. I do love an Arsenal fan obsessed with goal difference. If only the title was decided by it, maybe it will. I'm old enough to remember when it was decided by points. By the way, Chris Sutton, Rory's dad, many of us will remember him last week. He's the guy who predicted City 6-1 over United before the game. That is the gentleman who Rory's talking about here. And Joshua Youngerman, you're a beautiful human being. That rainstorm in Brooklyn, that is just a Carmap collaboration with Goop and Tommy Tuchel. Still to come. Last question on the night. Bring us home. It's Kitesh Rout. Tell us where you are, baby, and what's your question?
Hi.
Hi, Kitesh.
Hello.
Hi there, beautiful. Where are you?
Hi, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
Hey, where about in Boston, Kitesh?
Specifically Cambridge. I work in a biotech company.
Oh, we've heard of it. We've heard of it. Obviously, everyone only knows it as the place where Tracy Chapman first plied her trade as just a humble balladeer. What's your question, man?
So I'm a long-time Liverpool supporter, and I've been following not just football, but also basketball and a lot of other sports. But something that's come to my attention these days, or it's been picking up, is the refs. And it's not just football, it's like every sport. What do you guys think can be done in the most effective way to hold them responsible or accountable after the game?
Oh, Tesh, what a question. Rory Smith, we're living in the age of Clattenburg, where every team is hiring its own referee to make the whole debate even more subjective. Are the referees, have they always been crap, but we're just living in an age where the frameworks we're laying over soccer just tend towards hysteria and the poor referees are in their crosshairs week after week after week? Or is there something, I mean, there is a grassroots crisis. Who would want to be a referee in this moment when that hysteria surrounds every decision you make? Where are we? Is it even mildly fixable?
Yeah, you know, it's a really, really big question, and it's kind of one of those that's quite hard to know which way to go. My general feeling on referees has always been they're actually amazingly good, and the sort of furore whenever they get anything wrong is kind of misplaced, and it would all be kind of solved if we just stopped talking about them. Because, and the Liverpool Forest game last weekend is a great example. Paul Tierney got that wrong. It should have been a drop ball to Forest or whatever. But it was 2 minutes before Liverpool scored. The ball went out of play. Forest had possession like 3 times. Liverpool did not score that goal because Paul Tierney gave the drop ball the wrong way. It was very much like a correlation rather than causation. And because we have this need for controversy, that's what's picked up on. Is it's much easier and much snappier, and it's certainly given sort of soccer's ongoing addiction to Twitter. It's much easier to have a big sort of outrage storm about the referee getting something wrong than it is to talk about, Alexis McAllister's cross or Darwin Nunez's persistence or whatever. It's
Callum Hudson annoyed trying to run the ball out of his own box and coughing it right up too aforementioned.
Exactly.
McAllister.
And so that is kind of my general position on refereeing. At the same time, I think VAR, without question, has been a philosophical disaster for football. The implementation is one thing, but it's created this idea that there is such a thing as perfection. And now anytime anyone gets anything wrong, or even anything is given that could be interpreted as being wrong, and so much of it is subjective, there's this huge kind of scandal. The technology's taking over. I think there's a lot of anger in the fact that we've basically handed over control of the game to this faceless automaton, which echoes so much of our lives. And I think probably deep down, we really resent it. So yeah, I don't know what you do now, but because we seem to be following ourselves down this path of trying to legislate these issues away. And I'm not sure you can. I'm not sure that, IFAB will come in with another interpretation of a different rule to try and clear something up. It will only make it worse. Handballs. I have no idea what a handball is. I have no idea who wrote down the phrase natural body position in relation to your arm and thought...
I think it's from the Kama Sutra.
Do you know what? Nailed that. I've absolutely nailed that. That is exactly... People will understand that. Do you remember the bit about silhouettes?
Yes.
A few years ago when United put PSG out of the Champions League and Presnel Kimpembe's silhouette was in the wrong place. What are we doing?
We're just throwing shapes, We're just throwing
literally
shapes.
What are we doing?
By the way, I love that idea that our anger at VAR is just a refraction of our anger at just the algorithm in general, like the lack of powerlessness, the lack of power, the complete lack of agency that we have of our own lives. We need a VAR over VAR. We need Who's Watching the Watchman. We need a VAR can be VAR'd. I think it just be turtles all the way down. I cannot wait for that kind of football where it's like a Supreme Court should come over VAR. They should report in. They could have a very quick Justice Roberts, could have a little bit. You can appeal, go all the way up. What could go wrong? We could meld every single calamity. By the way, Katesh, thank you for your question. When you started with the NBA thing, I thought you were going to ask Rory, and I want to end with this because this is quite fascinating to me. English tabloids, very a Twitter at the moment, because they are making up the news that they've seen a surprise name on Chelsea's list to replace Pochettino. But it wasn't Chelsea's list in the English tabloids. It was Burley's list, even though he's not quite running Chelsea to the extent we like to believe he is. Burley's list to replace Pochettino is NBA Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr, which only surprised me because Steve Kerr comes on this show and he's a massive, massive Liverpool fan. Raw, can you see an age where this kind of complete cross-pollination between sports and a cross-specialisation, as Arsenal draw corners that are ever more like Brad Stevens' inbounds plays for the Boston Celtics? Can you ever see a world in which that would work? I would love it.
And I think, can you see a world in which it would happen? And the answer is yes. Someone will think it would make a good documentary. They will sell the rights to Netflix or Prime or whoever, Hulu, and they will do it just for that because football is rapidly becoming another arm of content, like all sports. Whether it would work, do you know what? I think it's probably not impossible. I mean, I won't pretend to be like an NBA aficionado or anything, but Steve Kerr is probably quite a good motivator. He's probably quite a good leader of people. I suspect he thinks strategically. That's why he's been so successful. I don't see why you couldn't bring him in like an advisory capacity and then have an actual football coach to do the football bit.
What's amazing is I mentioned Brad Stevens. Joe Mazzulla's obviously the coach of the Celtics now, an enormous football fan, to such an extent that he, in his break, went over to spend time with Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. That would be, he just chilled with Pep. That conversation, what he learned, where he goes next. By the way, God, when Everton get relegated, I'd bite your arm off to have Joe Mazzulla at Goodison Park. It is amazing to be with you, America, to debrief with you. It's amazing to be with you, Rory. I do need to say, quick look at the rest of the week here at Men in Blazers World Headquarters. All of it brought to you by Michelob Ultra, superior light beer. It is. I need to actually start doing these with several of them. We want to talk about a massive project that we've been working on at headquarters, which is World Corrupt Season 2. Yes, our partnership with Crooked Media and the wonderful singular Tommy Vitor. Season 1, of course, focused on the World Cup in Qatar. This season's takes on another quite fascinating topic. I will say no more, but we're going to talk more about it over the weekend. We're going to go deep on it all. It is amazing to be back in the saddle with my friend Tommy V. You'll find out this weekend the who, the what, the where, and most importantly, the whither. It's a very big topic, very serious topic. It's got Rory Smith's friend Tariq Panja all over it. The trailer drops this Saturday. Look at the Men in Blazers podcast feed for more. Until then, Rory Smith, I know you're objective and you cover football objectively. I am rooting. If you did have an affection for a team, I am rooting for them on Sunday. Bite your arm off for a draw, right, Raw?
Draw do me fine.
Do you watch football passionately, by the way? Or are you at this point just like analysing football for the next data-driven analysis you can pitch to the New York Times?
Once I actually put it on, or I'm in the stadium, it's quite hard not to get swept away. I went to a French second division game the other day and got really but at the end there was the home team, Paris FC, the third team in Paris, should have had a penalty. Yeah, and I was absolutely outraged that the referee didn't get it, and I found myself sort of shouting in broken French that it was definitely a penalty to people I didn't know, to strangers.
With a tiny gitana and a very small coffee in front of you.
Well,
you
get issued that when you get off the train, obviously. But no, there were 20,000 people there. It was mostly Saint Etienne fans, to be honest. It was, you get swept away. It's very hard to put that away, no matter how much football you watch.
God bless. And on that note, it's a joy to be with you, America. Come be with us next week. Big love and courage. Amazing.